On this computer. Okay, we started. What's up, family? This is the Kemites from the beginning and the end. Alpha and Omega. This is Baba Kwabena and this Baba Ahnk. We just here chopping it up, doing an analysis for the 8th of May. I got to pay my phone bill today. So it won't get cut off. I got one of them cheap phones that if you don't pay it that day, that is off. Right. Anyway, family, just wanted to say hello and just chop it up on a few topics of current discussion. And you want to give me say hello, and we're gonna get started. So, what you got to say, Brother Kwabena?
Well, you texted me about one of the things that you wanted to discuss, perhaps during this time, and that was about the Kevin Samuels scenario. And so I haven't really followed. I didn't really follow him. I knew of the controversy that surrounded him, but I wasn't a follower. And I did see, that he's gone on to be with the ancestors. I think I saw it whenever it first broke. But then there's been lots of conversation about how his lifestyle and those kinds of things, which I don't know why people get so caught up in other people's business, I guess there's some folks that saying he died broke.
He died of what?
He died broke.
Woke, W-O-K-E?
B-R-O-K-E, broke. And I'm like, well, how would you know that?
Broke.
What do you know?
Yeah. And if so, why does it matter? It's not nobody's business.
Why does it even matter? Why is it an issue for discussion?
No, but that goes back to a deeper topic, or I think point of departure, which we always have to maintain in focus, or at least in a rear view, that racism, white supremacy, and hypermaterialism. We live in a society whereby the material is exalted and the spiritual and the physical is denigrated or marginalized. And this started in the 15th century with the rise of the European project of world colonialism. And that's where we got to go with this, if we really want to understand it.
Yeah. It's quite sad that there's so much controversy now that he's dead about him being dead. When does it stop, right?
Well, in all fairness, they couldn't talk about him being dead when he wasn't dead. I mean, truth be told, right?
We got a smart ass on the call today.
I couldn't resist, bro. I couldn't resist.
That is a valid point, though. That's a valid point.
Hey, man, I had to keep it simple, man. That way I don't get messed up much.
That is funny.
Oh, yeah. And see, even in so-called or times of strife, whatever, I think there's always room for laughter. You may not feel it inside, but I think we should always laugh and make light of it. And that's what I admire about continental Kemites. They usually have a good sense of humor. We do too, typically. But we have this burden of racism, white supremacy. We always got to look at things from the view of the race, because really that's how we were taught. I mean, that's how America is based. And I'm going to use that to segue into something else. But go ahead with the Kevin Samuels.
No,
you got anything else to say?
Yeah, I not much. I mean, again, I didn't really follow him that much. I didn't, and I didn't like it. It seems as though the little snippets that I saw of him, it was more degrading than uplifting, especially women, and so, but other than that, brother's gone on to be with the ancestors. That's not a bad place to be at all.
No, but that's not what Christians say, but we won't go there for now. But what I wanted to say a little bit more, I'm going to close up with this Kevin Samuels character is, did I send you that video by Mag Bitter Truth? Because he gives a different analysis, which I find interesting. Like I said, I never accept anything totally what anyone says. I'm not a snake. I'm not going to just swallow it whole. I got teeth and all that. But basically what it is that this Kevin Samuels character, in my opinion, he was too much into style and not substance. And that's always a red flag for me when you so much into style. He always had on these little tight sodomite looking suits. No, that's his choice. You wear what you want, bro. you know, flashing big watch, whatever.
Yeah,
and
very, very fashionable, very
fashionable to a point. And I'm telling my age right now. But for men, we want to look good always, but not to the point of preening. He was like a bird preening, or you would see a woman that's so. You ever see women sometimes? It trips me out. Most girls, almost 95% of the women that I've been around, dated, whatever you want to call it, whenever they pass a mirror, they got to look at it and look at themselves. And that's a feminine trait. Men don't do that for the most part. They may glance, look at themselves, make sure their hair is in place, whatever. The glasses ain't crazy crooked, something in their teeth.
Right.
But women will they take pictures of themselves, and that's okay.
All the time.
Like I said, to me, that's a feminine trait. And when men do that, which there are some who do, and this guy, Kevin, seemed to be on that particular energy, it just gives me pause. Because, in my time, men weren't like that. We were more harder and not so much into emotions and all that stuff. And another thing I wanted to say about this character is that he exalted some people who are definitely poisonous to Black people, or the Kemites. And that is, he used to uplift this guy, Thomas Sowell. Now, if you know anything about Thomas Sowell, he's from New York. He's on the Hoover Institute, think tank / lobbying mind control group. Okay. And he talks about economics, and what Thomas Sowell is an apologist for white supremacy. Everything is always a Black man's fault. Black man is terrible because, just like Jesse Peterson said, he's so glad he was colonized, because if he wasn't, he'd be running around in the bush and uncivilized in Africa. I mean, it's just some foolish talk.
Wow.
And in fact, I've even come across Africans in Africa and Mali in particular, and people just repeat tropes that they've heard without any analysis. Like I used to hear this one brother, and when I was working in Mali, he would say that in French, he said basically, esclavage de la colonisation était mal, mais était mal nécessaire. That's, trying to say basically that, colonialism, slavery is really the same thing, was a terrible wrong, but it was a necessary wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Right.
Why?
Right.
From what perspective are you saying that? Same as with Jesse Peterson. Oh, I'm so glad we was captured and brought to the United States, because if we would be, in the bush running around. I wouldn't know Jesus. Oh man. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of buffoonery, coonery, ignorance, whatever, or outright agent action.
Combination of all the above.
Maybe. And, I don't know one way or the other. I'm just looking at what's happening. At this point, I don't really trust, not too far. What the old folks used to say, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, because they done taught us, man, with all this foolishness, that it's mostly lies coming out of here. But getting back to finally closing out on this guy, this character, Kevin Samuels, he exalted him. He exalted, Soul, which is a clear bootlick who did not want to look at the totality of the problem. And that's another problem I have with people not looking at the totality of the problem, and they say they're trying to get the subject matter. So if you're not going to analyze this guy's soul and just uplift him, then there's a problem without looking into some of the bad things he's doing or his blind spots. And that's not to say a broken clock ain't right twice in a day, but you just can't say carte blanche, sanction or support a known enemy of you and your people. That's a problem to me.
Right.
I'm not saying you can't learn from the most racist, crazy, stupid people. You can, and you should.
You should. You're right.
But you shouldn't sanction them and support them and say, "Oh, go follow this guy." You say, "Well, give it a caveat. Let's follow this. Read this guy. He's got some good things on this topic, but on his other sides, he's clearly missing. So you got to read with discernment." Anyway, that's me on this Samuels guy. Go ahead.
Chew the meat and spit out the bone.
Exactly. To keep it simple. One final thing, just talking about this Samuels guy, is that you know, I think it's good that he brought people together, but he also crushed a lot of people. I watched a few clips of him just denigrating people and not tying it back. That's the problem I have once again. Not tying it back to source, not tying it back to the Kemites, just being stuck as a Kemite, as an African, as a black man, being stuck in America and thinking your existence or totality starts with enslavement. It doesn't. And if we don't go past beyond that, we're not getting the full picture. We have to tie back to ancient Kemet, ancient Africa, our original people, in order for us to know our place. Anyway.
Exactly.
And
then tying back, you know, what I'm learning through this process too is that in Kemet, things weren't necessarily, it was more spoken than written, right? However, we do have some writings, but still it was more of a spoken thing that taught and trained people, an auditory thing. And
lips to ears.
Yeah, but also with that was they were in tune with the universe. And so the universe was speaking, nature was speaking. They had all of these different elements that they were in tune with and they worked together with. It was a co-creation of the whole of creation, right?
Correct.
And so some of the teaching that you received, there were downloads just because you were in a line and it was just downloaded, right? And so without understanding who we are and where we came from, we can't get back to that place. Therefore, we can't get the bigger picture.
I'm with you.
You know, so you know, a lot of people say that, and we've talked about this before. A lot of people say they're woke, and I know that there are different levels of woke, right?
What does woke mean? Let's define the term so that we on the same page. Because when I'm woke, I'm like, that's what happened this morning when my eyes opened and I got out of bed. But give me the definition so that we on the same page, bro.
The definition that I'm coming from is being aware of who you really are, knowing yourself and knowing your God.
Black Lives Matter, they woke?
No, not really. They're facade.
You're gonna hurt some feelings now.
I know I will. I know, but it's a facade. It's a facade.
But anyway, go on with your woke stuff, man. What were you gonna say about being woke and all that?
No, I was just the point is that if you're not woke, then you don't understand. You don't have the full kind of the fullness, if you will. And of course, that's even relative, right? Having the fullness, because we're all evolving and we're all learning.
We're all unfolding. I agree.
Yeah. And so, but it's like you're really not walking in that the truth that is.
Right. The truth that is. I like that.
Is that a better way to say it? The truth that is.
I do. I like that better. It's just well, I'll add something to that, in that I think walking in the truth that is, and recognizing that you're just a child, a luminous child unfolding into the universe as an agent of the Creator to learn and live. And you don't know shit. You ain't shit more or less than what God is, or the Creator, and that's within you. You walk with that pride, but you also don't have that type of hubris and haughtiness as we see what's going on. And I think for me, that's my best posture. So, and then just to wrap up, this I can't get off this Samuels guy, but he reminded me of a Tommy Sotomayor, who are really just opportunists and pimps to our culture and to ourselves, because they point out a problem but do not go to the cause of the problem or the proper solution from a Kemite perspective. It's purely based here, you know, in a slavery mindset, cultural mindset, which is what we have. I mean, the African-American culture, for the most part, popular culture, is a slave mindset culture. There's some beautiful things in there, I'm not going to lie. Africans still unfold, but a lot of the topics and discussions and point of views are slavery based. So we're moving back to the Kemite point of view. So I'm done with this Canelo guy, not Canelo, but this Sotomayor and Samuels guy, and moving on to the underlying topic, in my view, which is the race. because that's all based on race. And thinking about race, I always like to go back to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She came down here one time and did a lecture, and it really blew me away what she said. Oh, I love the lady, beautiful lady. May she rest in peace, or as an ancestor. But she said, and this came to her, and that's why no one can ever put a patent, copyright, whatever on knowledge, because knowledge is free. But anyway, she said that someone told her that America is an anagram for I am race. And there's power in words. So you can take the word America and you rearrange it and it will spell I am race. Well, guess what? That's what America is. It's the people say, oh, you playing a race car. You playing a race car. Well, of course, I'm in the race game. America is the race game. I got to play the race card in the race game. It's the reality of it, whether you want to accept it or not. And I'm not going to delude myself, as you spoke earlier, walk around and just oblivious to what's going on around you right now. And that's why I brought that up, because I want to talk about this Canelo Bivol fight last night, which has different levels. I'm just thinking about it now. It was a boxing match. I don't know if you follow boxing or not, but I do. I like boxing, following it. And it's a compelling story. It's this Hispanic guy, Mexican, Saul Canelo Alvarez, which they call him Canelo because that's Spanish for, as you remember, or maybe not, cinnamon, because he's basically a white boy, as we would term in the hood. And I don't even like that term white boy. I'm doing it just for descriptive purposes, because I think we need to be more discerning in terms of looking at people who are friends and foes. And just to use the term white, to me, it's kind of lazy in a sense. It's intellectually lazy because you're not picking out the gradations of what's going on in the culture and in the cultures. But anyway, this guy represents being, quote, white. So, you know, he gets a lot of support from, you know, non-melanated people, non-Kemites, who, you know, see him as the great white hope, a la Jack Johnson. And so he's won a lot of fights, and he's a good fighter. I'm not gonna lie. He's a great fighter, a lot of power, but he's like typical European fighters or non-melanated fighters. He's flat-footed. He's plotting. He's got good power, good head movement, but anybody, most African-style, Kemetic-style fighters will beat him. So he avoids them and gets these big plotting dolts or old guys who can't move around. Well, last night, the cunning of reason, I like that phrase. He got to the point where he picked this guy, European, Russian, by the way, which I love too. He was from, I think, Tajikistan, so he looked, whatever. But anyway, Russian, he considered himself Russian.
Okay.
And he beat the brakes off Canelo. I love it. Because all these racist fans, supporters of Canelo, were wanting him to be the white hope. Couldn't say he's the white hope. He's the greatest, this, that, and the other. And this boy was on his bicycle, Bivol, was dancing around, putting that jab in his face, just jab sandwich. And, you know, it's like, I was right on something like this. Canelo needs to give a review of jab sandwich, because he sure ate enough on last night. And they tried to rob him still, because Canelo's the cash cow. Just like, you know, same in the race game of America, you get a Eurocentric, non-melanated person to exalt as the greatest in whatever subject matter they do, even though they're not the top. Just like, what is his name? Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, they used to talk about it. They get, if I can get me a white boy who could sing like the blacks, I'd make $1 million or whatever, or a bunch of money. That's what they did. I mean, it's all over the place. I'm not saying Elvis wasn't a good singer. I like some of Elvis's song. I'm not gonna lie. And the way he moved, I mean, he had some style. But you know, viewed in the race game when I was coming up, we saw that as a challenge because we didn't have the full understanding of it. But getting back to Canelo and Bivol, so basically Canelo got knocked off his high horse, and all the so-called racists are upset, and it just order is restored in the universe. And once again, we go back to the race game. But that's what I wanted to say about that thing, because we're going to probably be touching on race all through here. How can we not? That's part of where we live in right now.
It's where we live. Yep.
But one other topic on that, on sidelight, is Russia. You know, the fact that this boy came from Russia, boy, man, okay, Bivol. he is rushing. A lot of people was hating on him, man. I saw where those Euros, man, and it demonstrates that society of the European mindset of violence and just war. Why are we fighting Russia? Why is Russia fighting us? And why is it war over there? You know?
Right, right. Well, that triggered a thought of a video that I watched this morning when I first got up about Africans speaking out against taking sides. So I was going to look for it so I could send it to you while I was thinking about it.
Okay, I saw that, but I didn't look at it. But I saw something of that subject. I don't know what it was. I don't know who it was. Send me what you got so I can know.
Okay. But they were, and I don't even know. I don't even know who the speaker was, but he was talking to a group of African leaders, and they were talking, and I think it might have been a UN session. And he was profoundly stating that, in essence, this is not our war. Why would you, the West, why would you try to force a sovereign country to make a decision based on what you want them to do versus what they want to do? So Africa was pushing back and saying that this is not our war, and we have a right to choose whether or not we want to participate or not participate. So, and he talked about imperialism and how from the beginning, how they have forced their superpowerness off on us, off on African people. But they don't do that because they think that they're better, or they're the right. They're always right in how they handle things. But he was saying that every country should be their own superpower. Not just that America is a superpower, but China's a superpower. Russia's a superpower. African countries are superpowers. And that should be respected as such, instead of you thinking that you are the superpower, that there's one, and bringing everybody together like the UN has, the Western countries together to be a conglomerate of that superpower. But he was saying it's an individual thing per country, And so, but it was very good. But it's good to see, again, it goes in line with these things that we're seeing about Africa and how the attitude is shifting, and how Africans are rising up, and they're making their voices known, and they're putting their feet down. Something else happened in Mali too that I saw. I'll have to go back and find it and send that to you. But anyway, so it's just interesting to see some of these things happen, and that again, it's the time for the African man. It's our time. It's our time. And we see things aligning and shifting, and the unification of things happening.
I agree with you 100%. And as Dr. Charles Finch, he spoke about how the constellation we have now governing the earth is Cepheus. That's the Greek word. I don't know the African name. I'm going to have to find it. But basically, the Ethiopian or the Kemite king, the return of the Black King, basically. It's like that movie Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King. That's what we got going on. And I think we have to be just open to discernment, because the power and flow of the universe is with us now. If we're moving in harmony and vibration with it. In times past, during the Piscean age, duality, which we're coming out of, that type of deceptive, simple-mindedness and trickery was able to dominate. But now that time is over. Righteousness and justice is coming.
Right.
Because a lot of people, they get caught up in this duality of right or wrong, Christian or heathen, Muslim or infidel, whatever. You just simplistic. We see it now. Democrat, Republican, communist, socialist, capitalist, socialist, whatever, foolishness, without looking at the gradations and really analyzing it for what it means, and taking, as you said before, taking the good parts, leaving the bad parts. But that's kind of like where we are right now with the Russian thing. And I think ultimately Russia fighting the rest of the West. And who knows who really controls them all? I think the bankers ultimately have the control. But what I like about Russia is that even though they have the form of a Republican or a Democratic type state, in reality, they have more like I would say an empire. And not empire in the sense of expansion, but one guy heading the show. More like a modified, monarchy in a sense.
Yeah.
A monarchy in a sense, because, he's been in power for, I don't know, what, 30 years or whatever, 25 years. Yeah. And he's been able to implement his program consistently. And as a result, we're witnessing the fruits now. Just like, when when Gaddafi wanted to introduce the gold standard, the gold dinar, and all the European powers, which we know who controls them, the bankers, the financiers, banksters, whatever, they all basically jumped behind NATO and went in and destroyed Libya, which was the most prosperous nation in Africa for sure, and maybe even in the world. I mean, free housing, free healthcare, subsidized living. I mean, it was like paradise. Like, I wish I could live there. Instead of getting to this basically neo-slavery system we call capitalism. But who didn't have the weapons, huh?
No, interesting to say that because, in African spiritual science, again, understanding African spiritual science gives you a different perspective and shows you more clearly what that truth is that we're supposed to be living in, right? So if you think about the universe and all of creation, the human being is supposedly the highest and most intelligent life form, right? That we know of on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so, but with that, it's the only life form on planet Earth that pays for rent.
Pays to live. I agree.
I mean, nothing else pays. No animal pays. No insects pays. Nobody else pays, and they all live well. They all live in abundance.
Say that to my dog. He lives very well.
Yeah. They don't lack. They don't lack for housing. They don't lack for food. I mean, they just thrive.
Birds, fish, everything just live on the planet.
Everything except human beings.
Well, but that's only because we've implemented, and maybe not only, but definitely in this iteration, because of this capitalist,
of course,
economic system, which I want to delineate capitalism from commerce, because unfortunately, many of our brothers and sisters and people around the world can only see the world through this duality of capitalism versus socialism. And depending on where you fall on in that dichotomy is whether you're right or wrong, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I see them both as just a system of commercial interaction. Commercial meaning taking the products of the bounty of the earth that the Creator provides to all to make a living with, whether you trade it,
right,
whatever you do with it. So I think we have to get out of this mindset of this duality once again and get back to just living. I was thinking today that capitalism is the operating system for slavery. You whether want to call it, they call it mercantilism, and then they had that colonialism, and then of course we had outright slavery. But it really is just capitalism as today is just the latest form of slavery, because now instead of everyone being free, or everyone being free, or you have a marginalized group like Kemites, Africans in slavery, which we were in this country, and in the diaspora, South America, Caribbean, whatnot, we were actually chattel, beasts of burden.
Yeah.
Cheaper to work to death for 3 years and buy another one than to take care of this human being, this creature from God. But that's what capitalism does. It took away our divinity and made us into just a commercial unit to be exploited as necessary to increase my profit, my personal profit. Crazy.
Selfish gains, yeah.
It's selfish games. And that's what we have to ultimately get out of capitalism. And I was just thinking about a way that we could democratize the money. The money needs to be democratized. And I was thinking maybe we could have something like, to make sure people were taken care of, because everyone has to work. There's no three ways about it. You got to work on this planet. If we could, like, say you go to, you just totally just destitute, whatever. You go to a gym or some other place and you ride a bicycle for 2 hours, 3 hours, stationary bike, hooked up to a generator, and you generate so many kilowatt hours, a la the Matrix. And because of this work you put in this place, bike, gym, whatever, you create this much electric power that goes into the grid. You can have it on a Bitcoin or what is it called, a cryptocurrency or a blockchain. You know how much energy you put into the system, and you can run a society. And because of you putting energy into the system, you are able to survive. Who determines the value? A lot of other topics in there, but at least there should be a democratic way to survive. And we don't have that under capitalism because it's about banksters and financial control and getting back to Russia and the US. We have hidden hands. We have puppets. Kamala Harris, who, what a pick. Joe Biden, Weekend at Biden's. You know the movie Weekend at Bernie's? Did you ever see that movie, Weekend at Bernie's?
The Weekend at Bernie's? No, I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, man, you need to watch this movie. Especially now. It's a movie called Weekend at Bernie's.
Okay, no. Now, this is not talking about Bernie Sanders, is it?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I look at movies on occasion, but, sometimes you wonder if that's revelation of the method. I'm not sure what it is, but I find them interesting when they come into life. Give you a brief synopsis. There's this old guy. He's got a company, or I don't know how old, but basically he's having a party over the weekend and Friday night or something.
I see there's a Weekend at Bernie's too, as well.
Well, long story short, this guy dies. Okay. Bernie dies. And then there's two hotshots in his office, whatever, who need to make sure that he stays around till Monday or something. Something to the effect that they have to keep this corpse animated till Monday because a new transaction, whatever, is going to occur. So they go around and they show him going to the golf courses and doing other things. And basically, it's kind of a corpse, a dummy, a golem.
Still alive.
To make people think he's still alive. Some argue that's what's going on with the current government, with Biden. So instead of Weekend at Bernie's, we got Weekend at Biden, or the presidency of Biden. I don't know if it's true.
That's funny because I was at the market this morning, and they have all of those gossip magazines at the counter.
Oh, I love them. You pick them up and you read them, then you put them down. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So this was the National Enquirer, and on the front cover was Bernie, and it talked about how the same thing you're just talking about. How
Bernie Sanders?
I'm sorry, not Bernie, Biden. How Biden is being propped up and that he's actually got Alzheimer's. And I thought about it. I said, well, you know what? That could very well, because, I took care of my mom by myself for 4 years. And she was in the latter throes of dementia when I got her. And I see a lot of the behavior in him that I saw in her before I diagnosed her. Because I figured out what was wrong with her before she even went to a doctor, because I started doing research and I started seeing all the signs of pointing to Alzheimer's dementia. And I thought, oh my God, my mom, she won't return from that outside of a miracle.
Well, I don't know about that, but go ahead with your topic, because I want to touch on that. But go ahead.
Since I've come into African spiritual science, I've learned something different about Alzheimer's and the brain and how it works. And the state of the person's mind. But the point is, when I saw that article this morning in the store, I thought, you know what? There's some truth to that the government, the Democratic Party, is propping up Bernie Sanders. Because
you mean old Biden? You mean old Biden?
Biden, I'm sorry.
And I say old Biden because Obama's involved. Obama's got a battery in his back making his hand up his ass, making his mouth move in a lot of cases,
right,
like a puppet.
Exactly. So it's just interesting that you should say that, and after me seeing that this morning.
Hey man, truth is truth. The universe reveals all. We just got to be open to listen and see. But getting back to this Biden weekend at Bernie's things, I just see, you know, that's kind of what's going on in Western societies too. And I see the Bernie metaphor, weekend at Bernie's metaphor for basically the control, the ultimate control we have in our society. Unfortunately, for people who don't discern, we think that the guy standing up there making a speech, you know, trying to pander to the crowd to get voted for is the one with the power. But of course, when you actually understand true power, economics and resources and the like, it's the golden rule. Always, he who has the gold makes the rules. So it's the financiers now, bankers, whatever you want to call them, banksters, are the ones who are controlling the politicians. And they let you know, they call it lobbying. And it's a great gig, right? You give this politician $100,000 to help him get elected, and he writes in the law that you in turn are able, one is able in turn to recoup billions.
Right.
I gave $100,000 and I'm getting back billions because you wrote this law and it allows me to put pink slime as meat now that I used to have to throw away. That's a small thing.
Right.
But my bottom line now has just unfolded, just like this whole idea of we have this topic of experimental injections of things into our bodies for particular ailments that may or may not exist as we've been taught. Whole germ theory versus terrain theory. But that's a different topic. And just touching on some of these so-called Negroes who are progressive or woke or whatever, they still supported the injections of experimental chemicals into bodies without any discernment. But yet, if it's abortion, my body, my choice. So it's a lot of hypocrisy. But just touching on the dementia, the biggest cause of dementia is aluminum consumption. Free elemental aluminum is not found in nature. Aluminum is typically bound up with oxygen, Al2O3. Basically, I forget what they call them, forgetting the term, but basically they have to break the aluminum and the oxygen apart to get free elemental aluminum. And elemental aluminum is bound into oxygen because it's a poison to the body. And what they're doing with geoengineering is spraying us with aluminum. So the uptake of aluminum is what's causing most dementia. So that is to say, we need to do heavy metal detox regularly in order to keep our minds. And your mother may have been saved. I'm not saying she would or wouldn't, but a heavy metal detox on a regular basis may have brought her back. So
interesting.
Yeah, because on the board of the Alzheimer Foundation Fund, whatever, sits the Aluminum Council. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Fox watching the hen house, shall we say?
Yeah. And again, I can't seem to get away from this. And I've said it before, so you're gonna hear it again.
No, that's okay. Helps me remember.
Those that are mutants. In their mutation,
right?
Something happened psychologically. It had to have. I cannot see how it could not have happened. And is that stereotyping all non-melanated people? Probably, but the majority of them.
I think it becomes cultural. I don't think it's necessarily physical per se, even though I think there are some who are. I've seen studies that say that the people who are non-melanated have a higher propensity for calcified pineal glands.
Okay.
And of course, our science teaches us that pineal glands are nothing. They're just vestigial organs that have no reason, rhyme, or reason. Then the other topic is the pineal gland is the third eye, the connection to the spirit and the connector. Right. So on one hand, you say that, oh, it's nothing. It's just some vestigial organ that has no role because we ain't figured it out yet, so it ain't worth nothing. That's really what they say all the time. Or is it really
it's just in the body just because?
Because it just happened to be there. God made a mistake or whatever. Evolution.
It's kind of like those items that you buy at IKEA, and you bring them home and you put them together, and then you get it all put together. And you left out some things, but it's like, well, I don't know where that was supposed to go. But oh well.
Then as you learn more, you say, oh, maybe I should have put this screw, and that would help support it more. Because when I sit on it, I cracked it. And that goes back to the whole tonsil thing, because, you know, when I was coming up, the whole thing, if you had like inflamed tonsils, whatever, instead of addressing why the inflammation was there, the doctor, his solution, which is the medical model in this culture is, what is it? Slash, burn, or poison. That's what they do. They either slash you, burn you, or poison you. Mm-hmm. So my sister, bless her heart, she kept getting throat infections. And instead of looking at what's causing these in diet, lifestyle, whatever, the doctor said, well, we just go and slash and cut them out. So they cut out her tonsils. And now they're finding that tonsils are a bulwark or a first line of defense to prevent infection to the body overall.
Oh, wow.
Right. So you need your tonsils, just like they're finding that your appendix is necessary. And everything, this divine rental that we're currently driving called our bodies is divinely designed and is right and exact for our time on the planet. So that's why I'm glad I'm born as a melanated man, a Kemite on the planet. Switching gears here a little bit, I saw in some of my little science stuff that the ozone layer is depleting, and that volcanoes and all this stuff they're doing to try and control is depleting and eliminating the ozone layer. So the elimination of the ozone layer will allow more cosmic rays and other bands of radiation, X-rays, whatever, to come and hit the planet. Well, guess what protects against those X-rays and so forth? Melanin. So if you have melanated skin, you're going to be better protected. Not to say you're going to be totally protected, but you'll be better protected than someone who doesn't have melanin. So these people, in their cunning of reason, are destroying the planet to the point that they will be the first to be eliminated as a lifestyle. They'll still be here because, getting back to your topic, these people who consider themselves Caucasian and white are confused in a lot of ways culturally. There's some, walking around who know what's going on. You can't say all white people, all non-melanin. No, right. It's like you can't say all black people. No, it's a bunch of clueless Negroes out here. Yeah. But I think, I think culturally, what you spoke of earlier, I think that may have been a dominant mindset in order to survive, if the theory is right, of these people coming from caves and living in the Caucasus Mountains and having to just basically live a very barbaric lifestyle and be violent and destructive, as we're talking about the wars in Europe and so forth. That may be part of it. I don't know that, and I don't want to say all people who don't have melanin in their skin are like this, because everybody's melanated, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're talking about skin melanation versus melanation in the body, if one does not have melanin in their body, they can't live. You can't survive without melanin. You may not have it in your skin, but you got it all through your organs. You got it all through your body. You wouldn't be here but for melanin. That's one of those major molecules that's there at the very conception of the being and necessary for life.
Okay.
So we have to separate the three types of skin melanin from bodily melanin. But I mean, to your point though about culture influences life though, right?
It does.
You're in the environment. Look at us. I mean, we're in the new United States or whatever. We're in the new United States, and we are focused on race. Everything is racial.
Right. right, right. And it's not like that on the continent for the most part. In some
Right.
parts, like South Africa,
Right.
there's a focus on race because of what exists there.
Right.
But for the most part across the continent, there's no focus on race, though there's a focus on tribes, but slightly different variation of that thing.
Well, to that point, though, God, the creator and his unfolding ancestors, I think was this whole dynamic we've gone through, I think is an opportunity or a teaching moment for us as people, or melanated people, Kemites as a whole, to wake up and recognize that separation, unnecessary separation, while it's a strength in some ways, as we started off talking about the hats, being able to be creative and wanting to express yourself creatively to the point of, to me, banality, and cultural tribes and marginalization. You know, you create music, create clothes and whatnot, and that's fine. But to the point of when you start using that to sell your brother into slavery, because these people on what do you call them, Mzungus, Tubobs, whatever, they got different names for them, come on the coastline and gonna give me some rum or some tobacco or whatever, or a gun, and I'm gonna trade these people who I consider a different tribe other than myself, to these people on the coastline who I don't know nothing about and who have really had some deplorable behavior. You know, that's what I think this whole colonial project it should and is teaching Black people, because I'm seeing more people talk more about a Pan-Africanist approach also. And I think, unfortunately, the last people who are going to be on board the ship are going to be the Latin Negroes. Them Negroes in Latin America, apart from the Cubans for the most part, but even some of them, Blacks who have gone through, Africans, Kemites who have gone through Spanish colonialism, Spanish mind control, are some of the most confused Negroes on the planet. And, you know, I don't have love for them. I love them overall, but that mind control thing that they have with this racism, white supremacy is strongest in those Negroes down there, because they had this concept called mehara la raza. Ain't that something? In other words, we did it here. You don't marry nobody darker than you. You got to always marry somebody lighter. You know, that whole foolishness.
Okay.
They call it mehara la raza, improve the race by making it, by becoming a mutant.
Wow. But that same mindset, though, exists in Western culture as well. I mean, we I don't know. It's though. Where was I going with that? You and I were talking about this, I think, last week. You were talking about it as it pertained to your family and how through generations, it's like it goes like 3 or 4 generations before you can get back to a particular
being pure. Or at least, or 99.9%. Yeah. I was talking about that. Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean that's kind of the same. You know, the push for interracial marriage in the West. I mean, it's kind of that same thing, because they're getting the melanin when a white person marries a Black person. That pigmentation melanin, anyway.
Is that a subconscious cry or attempt at survival?
It exactly, because the white
is that what it is
race,
really?
The white race is disappearing, right?
In light of the geological changes and the elimination of the ozone layer through their foolish policies.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it could be some of that, and it could be just that. You know, this mutation occurred, which we call albinism. We got to call you know, and that's the whole thing we spoke earlier. We need to be right and exact. We don't need to be thinking about feelings, whatever. We got to be on this truth thing, because that's what the creator's about. The sun come up in the east, whether I like it or not. He don't be tired. At least he don't tell me. The sun don't tell me that he's tired and he had to work hard last night, stayed up late, whatever. Right. He come up at the right time every day. Because that's the truth right now. That's not going to say it won't change tomorrow. The truth may change tomorrow. The sun may come up in the east or the west.
Mm-hmm.
All right, maybe I'm getting that backwards. I say it comes up in the east and sets in the west. But basically, nature is right and exact all the time. And we have to be that way because that's what our ancestors, the Kemites, did. That's why they followed the Netaru, which were the principles of right and exactness, which the Europeans or the non-melanated people or uninformed people turned into nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then they perverted it even further by saying, oh, if you follow nature, the Abrahamic religions, you're following some pagan format and you are going to hell. Ain't that something? Right. You took science and now turned it into superstition, and ignorance is exalted. That's what Abrahamic religions do.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna get through all our topics, brother, because I was thinking about the African stuff, thinking about the African Union, but to the point, I think we have to recognize race for what it is, and recognize that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and that's what happened in Africa too. I think to a degree, and it was also I think barbarism that occurred because as our cultures devolved from Kemet and other places within the Sahara and whatnot when it dried up, we had advanced civilizations there, man. I mean, very extensive and forward-thinking people. But when we were chased out of North Africa, you know, we were reduced to basically living in smaller groups and tribalism. And right now we have the humanity coming back to where we are. And I think that's what's happening in Africa now. But colonialism is breaking people up and getting us back to looking at it from the holistic and totality Pan-Africanist point of view. That's ultimately where we're going. We're going to have to.
Yep, that's exactly where we're going. Yep, yep. And some of us can see it better than others, but it's all about it's all about your, I guess your connectedness, your involvement, your exposure. Because if you don't see it, you don't know. And it doesn't matter what anyone tells you, right? Because if they don't see it, they don't care what you say, though you see it, because they don't see it. Because we've been conditioned, seeing is believing. So if they don't see it and know you tell them, because you know it's true, they don't believe it. So they can't see it. Right? So
that gets back to that. I'm thinking about that reggae song. He who feels it knows it, y'all. If you feel it, you know it. And that's another thing. You just on your following up on your discussion point there. We're taught to pay attention to these 5 tactile senses. What is it?
Yeah.
Taste, smell. What is it? Taste, smell, hearing, sight. There's one more.
Touch.
Touch. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Taste, smell, hearing, sight, touch. And if we can't do that, it's not real. That's what the European project has taught us from the 15th century. Right. If it doesn't touch those 5 points, then it's not real. Whereas we know through physics, science, we've come to understand that just because you can't touch it, taste it, smell it, feel it, hear it, whatever, doesn't mean that it's not there. Look at cell phones. You can't touch, smell, hear, whatever them, but it's real nonetheless. And then you got higher vibrations and frequencies. So getting to the point that spirit, the highest vibration is there, and we can feel that and know that and guide us. And that's where some people are feeling the flow and recognizing the change of the tides and are on the front leading edge of the Pan-Africanist or resurrection of the African king to restore balance on the planet. That's where we are right now. So my thing is this: I was thinking we need to come up with some, get some of these young geniuses in Africa, these young boys, and put them in schools, man, and come up with some devices to marginalize these European weapons. So that when we can neutralize their weapons, we can be like Heru, submitting to Huti, to have the wisdom to subdue Set in order to restore balance on the land. Not kill Set, not destroy Set.
Right.
Defeat Set.
But that's never been the Africans' intention. to kill. They've always been accepting and accommodating.
To a fault.
Peaceful to a fault, right? They are peaceful people to a fault. And so, but that's not how we're viewed.
Of course not.
Yeah. So
no. The point I'm trying to make is, but the thing is, you have this thing called projection, and when you have psychopaths, and they come in all shapes and forms, and you have psychopaths, they do a lot of projection because they think in a zero-sum game, and that's capitalism too, because capitalism is a what they call that, psychopathic or economic system. Mm-hmm. Because if you are a psychopath and you're trying to, get as much stuff as you can and hurt people because you got to get your stuff, you're insane. But that's our system now. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so Africans weren't like that, but a lot of them have become that way. So we just can't say because someone is melanated that they're bad or good, whatever. Comes on the individual culture, but it's about the teaching. And that's what's so beautiful about today. All this information that can be transmitted worldwide to have a renaissance of truth and light.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
You got any final words, brother? I think we done went long enough. It's about an hour.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm good. I sent you a couple of videos.
Thank you, brother. I just so appreciate your friendship, man, because, this is the time we were supposed to come together. Maybe we would have met 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago. We may not have even gotten along. Probably wouldn't, it's like,
oh, yeah, I mean, for sure. I was on a different level back then. So I know life is so different for me today. And so I'm grateful that I know what I know. And I've come where I've come from. And it's all good. It's all good.
I saw a saying by Bruce Lee, which I think is appropriate for everyone going forward. We have to be like water and flow and fill up all the empty spaces, but be able to, I'm changing it now a little bit, but be solid and hard as a block of ice when necessary. So I think that's a metaphor for us, flowing like water, movements and whatnot, the kung fu type stuff with Bruce Lee. I think there's a lot of truth there, especially considering the fact that we are 99% water.
Yeah. And what I'm learning about the law of attraction, that's the premise behind the law of attraction, being fluid. A lot of times, the law of attraction says that we have this resistance that impacts us from reaching the things that we want, and we don't recognize those resistances when they come. And for instance, there are things that I can see about myself that I know I'm supposed to have. I've had dreams about it. I can see it in my third eye, but I don't physically have it, right? But to get, and it's been some of it are things that I've seen 10, 12 years ago. And I can still see it, but I haven't grasped it. It hasn't come to fruition in the natural yet. But in African spiritual science, it teaches why there are the delays and that there are resistors. We have these resistances. And unless we're in tune and listening to our inner being, we don't have, we come up against a block and we don't know how to get around it. But if we'll meditate, if we'll take time to practice these laws, then how we will get these, what they call impulses and instructions to tell us which way to go, so that we can work our way to whatever that thing is that we're trying to get to. And there's this concept of what they call a vortex. Everybody has their own vortex. And all of this stuff is stored up in your vortex. Some of it you know about it, some of it you don't.
Some people may call it the Merkaba, whatever, but I know what you're saying. Your energy field, your energy existence at this particular plane. Right.
So it's all about your vibration. Because when you have those resistances, that's a vibrational block. And in order to get through that resistance, you'll have to elevate. But only Source can tell you how to elevate to that level of that resistance of the vibration of that thing, so that you can get around and get through and keep flowing. They talk about, you have a river that flows. There's an upstream and a downstream flow. And how when you get in it with your boat and you go upstream, it's a lot of work. It's a struggle. But when you're flowing downstream with the current, you don't even have to paddle. You just flow. So those resistors are that we're going upstream. And so they talk about how you turn to go downstream and allow yourself to flow with where the spirit is trying to take you. And man, as I've been learning this stuff, it's just been amazing to see that it's actually working. The more I learn it, the more I understand it, and the more it works, and the more things start to open up for me so I can flow, you know? So I'm anticipating some of these things that have been held up for me financially. I'm starting to see the unfolding. And that's another term they use in African spiritual science. You can see the unfolding as you get these impulses and you walk in that direction, then you'll get another impulse. But the impulses only come as you obey, as you implement. You get one, you implement it, then you get the next one, the next instruction, if you will. And so it's just really been interesting to see how all of this stuff that has been held back from us, how now I can see it now that I'm in it and I'm practicing it, and the things that are occurring right before my eyes. So it's pretty amazing. And that ties into some of the things that I mentioned to you earlier. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let you go. But I talked about some of the things that have happened to me that are just amazing. I mean, there's no way that I could have created these scenarios, like buying the land in Ghana, and even how that happened. Me meeting this family in Ghana, and this family, they knew I was supposed to be in relationship with them. And so
Spirit is deep, bro.
They gave me land and put it in my name. I didn't pay nothing for it.
Spirit is deep.
So that I could buy the land in Kumasi that has the gold on it. And I didn't know the land had gold on it.
That's a whole nother topic, bro. And that's another reason why we're together. So
yeah, so it's like, and I have several things like that have happened to me. And I keep saying, how does this shit keep happening to me? What is going on? But I didn't understand it until I came into African spiritual science. Now I see. I see why it's happening, and I see now what I need to do in order to move into it.
Spirit is deep, brother. Spirit is deep.
The spirit is deep. But that was stolen from us. We should be living like that every day, and we should have been living like this.
I agree. However, recognizing how the universe, using your word, unfolds is cyclical.
And it is. And it is. And again,
we had to go to sleep.
We get caught up in what was and don't realize that all of it's been a part of the plan and the path.
Right. And what I'm going to right now is that we were asleep for the past, some say 1,500, 500, 2,000, whatever years you want to call it, since the last fall of Kemet. I could say probably 500 years, because that was the fall of the last powerful African empire that I'm aware of, and that is the Songhai Empire. That was the last purely African-centered empire on the continent. Of course, we had Haiti and the like, but I think we had to go to sleep just like we do now and wake up in the morning to start the new day and manifest and be creators. We collectively as Kemites went to sleep for the last 500 years and these folks had their way with us, been abused, misused, all that. Well, guess what? We needed that in order to be ready for the next iteration of the universe. Yeah. So now we're waking up with more power, more knowledge, and more everything in order to put things in their place and be right and exact. And all you folks who are not on the right side of the creation, boy, you're gonna disappear. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You see it now.
Yeah, yeah.
They're gonna be eliminated. And I don't care who you are. Right. You black, or you could be a European, whatever, Chinese. If you're not on the right side of creation, you're going to be eliminated, because it's not your time right now. Your time has passed. You had your time in darkness. Right. Now we're coming into light. Roaches can't live in the light.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Very true. And
All right.
I have to keep in mind that this lady that I'm following, who's teaching the African spiritual science, she's a Mzungu.
What's the? Oh, really?
A Mzungu, and
Hey, man,
she is deep. So rightly so, you can't discount them.
Well, just like you got Negroes who go into economics and be, you know, very straight European type dominated areas of study. Negroes being there, be there strong. Truth is truth, and you cannot look at the vessel that brings you the water you need.
Right.
If you're thirsty, if you need the water and you're thirsty, you want to discriminate against the vessel because it's ornate, or if it's a piece of wooden, it's just a wooden bowl with water, and then you thirsty. You've been walking across the go to my what is it? The Masonic metaphors, crossing the burning sands, and you come to, you know, this bowl of nice cool water, or this calabash or whatever, and you thirsty. You gonna throw it away because it's not in a wine glass?
Right.
Nah, you gonna drink it.
Right.
Just like the Mzungu giving you truth, and that's what I've had to come through, and that's what we have. I wanted to say earlier, a problem with this race thing. We get too much caught in it too, and we can't do that.
Yeah, so true.
I know I've been there.
Yeah.
Not wanting to accept something because it's coming from a person I classify as white. That's terrible. But I've been taught.
I did that recently when my children, we would talk, because my children are very religious. I mean, because that's what
you mean Christian? You mean Christian?
Christian.
There's a well, maybe you can say religion is okay, but go ahead.
And so, because we raised them that way, right? Because that's how we work, right? So anyway, I made a comment about 2 years ago to them, my daughter, biological daughters, and we were talking about church and whatnot. And I had stopped going to church at that point because I was like done. And I was, again, seeing all these things. Finally, I was so awake in that area. And I was angry at white people because what I was learning about what they had done and how this whole web of lies that they've created, that the whole world has bought into, especially Black people, and considering the dedication and the time that I put into the church, time, resources, talents, money. I mean, just so much I poured into the church because I knew it was the right thing. So my older daughter, she's always sending me pastors and preachers to listen to that have inspired her. So she kept sending me these white people. So finally I said, don't send me nothing from no white person. I'm not interested in what they got to say at this point in my life. And so they don't send me anything anymore, which is fine. But now that I've grown and evolved, I'm not necessarily there because I've gotten beyond some of the anger and the resentment that I experienced and that I realized that it happened. And so I'm at a different place, but they don't know that because we haven't had the conversation about it.
You need to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I just want to add on to that point. I have a couple of Christian based pastors or philosophers that I follow. And like I said, I'm not a Christian. I'm beyond that right now. But that doesn't mean that because of their Christian background and whatnot, I'm going to discount the truth that they bring to me. So I'll listen to them and, you know, accept what they're saying, that I know that's right. It resonates with my spirit, and reject the other stuff. So I try to be open to Christians, Muslims, all that, because they're going to all bring truth. And there's a reason that they're bringing the truth and the reason that they are where they are. And one final thing, I want to use a quote by, I think it's Mark Twain. And it goes to your point about what you were talking about your daughter. And he says something to the effect that what gets you in trouble is not what you know for sure, but what you know for sure that just ain't so.
I like that.
Yeah, good. Back to fact-based reality. All right, brother, love and gratitude, man. I'm going to let you go, man.
Yes, my brother. Love you. Appreciate you. Peace to you.
All right, man. Peace.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right.